Renault FT was a French-like tank developed during the Great War alongside the continuation of Mark series by the British which was fielded before in Somme. It was a mark of an advancement of the armored warfare with its legacy still known until these recent days. By its design, considered as a revolutionary masterpiece, but not at all, because the concept actually was practiced in other platforms before the development. The military technology development during the early 20th century, including the land warfare, reached its many ways. Industrialization and of course, lessons from the previous conflict became a principle of the development. For supporting the attack, ultimately infantry, a new technology was urgently developed considering the cavalry role was being outdated as the time was progressed and needs an armored land vehicle to mostly replace that. Military technology was still in development as the era changed time to time. From the early development starting from Little Willie by the Major Wilson of the British Army and Sir William Triton as a manufacturer of agricultural machines until the Mark series which have the rhomboid-style body to cross the trenches, oftentimes had wheel support on the back, armament on the left and right, also the soaring tracks to the upper body which was originated the nickname Lance. The etymology of the tank itself, according to the Alden from his discussion after the war in 1919, was a name to conceal its real purpose to be a war machine as an infantry support role and tank-to-tank combat as we know today. Then, armored land vehicles, which had turrets before, actually was implemented by the earlier armored cars in some nations. The installment of the turret on those which bring up the tank development. First developed as a request from Jean-Baptiste Eugene Estienne in 1916 for the infantry support, Louis Renault created a compact two-man tank with the turret already installed on a track vehicle with a fair power-to-weight ratio and constant speed, also could cross trenches, of course. Then the choice was good enough since it prompted them to immediately focus on building a smaller machine. France was already experimented with its Saint-Amand and Snyder CI-1 before, but also got their drawbacks. FT, who bears the name of the tank, there is assumption that was an abbreviation of Variable Tonnage, or Low-Weighted, or Franchisseur de Chances, or Trench Crosser, but that wasn't right. Just a code from Renault itself. Powered by a Renault four-cylinder engine and armed either Bobrujsk SA-18 gun or 37 mm by the way, or Hotchkiss machine gun. Also the armor was enough to restrain rifle bullets. First fielded on third stage of the Battle of Aisne, alongside the other French tanks, it got some success as proposed. The little Renault tank is a proven vehicle in many respects which based many designs later after the war. The Renault FT was used by many countries and some was licensing or simply copy. Example of the foreign users of that little tank was the Poland and Spain. Poles fielded the FTs which bought from France in 1919 against newborn Soviets who annexed the country after the war ended, despite the internal tension which Allied powers intervened to suppress the revolution. Also became the pioneer of the police tank regiment before acquiring more battle tanks later on, despite was ultimately outmatched by Germans during the invasion. Spain also purchased from France in 1921, which came in following year, fielded to suppress the rebellions of Morocco. Used again in 1925 to support the amphibious operation with its success. America was in interest to licensing the FT during the war built by Ford Motor Company as an M1917, but it was considered too late for deployment as, as the Armistice echoed. The Soviets was in interest too, after they captured it in 1919 during the Allied intervention as mentioned before, also built its lateral copy called Russian Renault or Ruski Renault. On the other hand, its revolutionary design was influenced the development continuation in the interwar era. Starting the two-man crew, which composed the commander who acted as a gunner and the driver, became a normal design like the Panzer I from Germany, Renault R-35 also from France, and some tankets out there which have much lighter armament, also some of them turretless. As the time was going on, one-man turret likely burdening the commander role, which developed other design which accommodates the gunner role than others like loader and radio operator. Besides that, one of the most known tank design in this era was the multi-turret tank, with more than one turret installed in a one hull makes looks like a bland battleship in some opinions. The other concept, which likely same formula, was a smaller gun on the turret and bigger one on the hull like the American M3 Lee. However, the complexity of crew accommodation and command also mostly sacrificed their protection instead of many armaments could easily being outdated as the next chapter of major conflict came, Second World War. The Renault FT was considered outdated during the Second World War by its armor and firepower, but France had to field it alongside more modern tanks to defend against Germans, which has several losses and many of them are captured, as the France was fall in 1940 as a recon or occupied zone control tank to repel any rebellions. Reportedly, Afghanistan was fielded its FTs against the Soviet invasion in the 1980, which found by the Americans in 2003 during its occupation, but that was brings speculations that tanks actually seen in combat or not, considering the scarcity of explication. In sum, military technology development which supported by industrial capability and constant evaluation could be created a new innovation. In this tank development context, earlier the Little Willie under Renault FT with an advancement to replace the traditional cavalry. The third installment concept was new. The armored cars was first in the land armored vehicle context. Until this recent day, the existence of Renault FT was made many phases of the modern tanks we know today as the main battle tanks or MBTs with its complex development too. Even was known as an icon of the Great War's military technology. Hopefully you all enjoy my little story, and I am sorry if there are any mistakes or lack of explanation or sources which made this video possible. Thanks for watching.